Buffalo in the playoffs.
6,948. Does that number mean anything to you guys? Because if you're out there and you're a Leafs fan like us, it certainly does. It had been exactly 6,948 days since the Maple Leafs last won a playoff series. And last night, they finally did it. This is our one-around series-clinching episode, the first in our history of the pod. I'm Joe Choffs with the boys, Coach Frank and Bobby Bottles. Gentlemen, how did you sleep last night after that win that was 19 years in the making? And what was it like for you today, walking on cloud nine?
Indescribable. Everybody out in the stores, in the arenas I was in today, all wearing Leaf stuff. It's great seeing flags on the road again. Remember those from so many years ago? It's been awesome. And I made the comment the other day, for my son, watching him enjoy this is like not knowing the garbage that we went through the last 19 years. It's awesome. And I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. So let's go.
Yeah, kids today have no idea the pain that we've been through, especially if you're a young kid like our sons are.
Exactly.
At that age. Bobby, you're not a Leafs fan per se. I think you're like a closet Leafs fan. How was last night for you?
Guys, that was surreal. Like, I'm telling you, as they picked up at the puck in the corner, I don't want to like foreshadow stuff, but like 92, 93 came up to me. I don't know why. It just popped into my brain, and we saw, our friends at the Buds there, Talking Buds, or they talked about how slow motion. It felt like that puck went in slow motion. Like, it was so clear as day, and it was a surreal experience. I don't know if you guys felt the same.
Like time stood still as you watched that puck trickle in.
Like pixel by pixel, it was as clear. It was a scramble goal too. Like, really, if you think of it, it was a scramble goal, and it just as clear as day. It was
just put it to the net.
That's it.
Right?
There's if you get a chance, there's a video, not just the goal, but Sheldon Keefe somebody caught Sheldon Keefe
mouthing what he wanted him to do.
Go to your forehand. As Tavares was coming around the net on his backhand, you see Keefe go to your forehand, and sure enough, it's almost like he knew exactly the move he was gonna pull, and it's just amazing. And you know what? Wasn't it nice to sit back, and now there's a second game on now, to watch hockey with just putting your feet up and just like watching who your opponent's going to be? Like, that's a feeling I haven't had in a long, long time. Stress-free.
And we're going to get to that because we just saw a huge upset. One of the biggest in NHL history as the Panthers defeated the Bruins. We'll get to that, and we'll tee up the next series with the Leafs and Panthers shortly afterwards. But in continuing to talk about this series win for the Maple Leafs, like it's hard to put into words what that win last night meant for fans like you and I, Frankie, fans that just live and breathe this team. We often ask ourselves why we do it, why we do this to ourselves. When you're so used to having your heart ripped out and stomped on, and yet every year you come back for more punishment, and when you've waited 19 years for something to happen and it finally does, it's just a feeling of euphoria, relief, excitement, and you just release it all. It's such a surreal feeling it was last night. Last night it felt like we won the cup, and that may sound pathetic to people, and I can admit that, but when you've waited for something for so long and you've been kicked in the teeth so many times waiting for that moment to happen and it finally does, you got to celebrate it. And for all the people, the non-Leafs fans, the Leafs haters taking shots at Leafs fans for celebrating the way that we did last night, you don't get to chirp us for 19 years with, hey, why don't you win around, you losers? You don't get to say that for 19 years. And then when we finally win around and get to celebrate it, go ahead and make fun of us for it. All right. That celebration last night was as much of a clap back to you guys as it was to just enjoying it for ourselves. Personally for me, 20 years ago, I lost my brother, and the Leafs beat the Senators a year after that happened. And ever since then, I've been waiting for that moment to happen again. And I was 19 at the time. Now I'm a man, late 30s. I got my own son now, 5 years old, sitting beside me watching the game. He never stays up that late. And in my head, I'm just, before the overtime, I'm like saying a prayer to myself, like, please give me this moment with him as he's sitting right next to me. And then I turned to him and asked him, so Luke, who's going to get the overtime winner for us? And he looks up at me, says, Tavares. And lo and behold, Johnny Tavares scores the game-winning goal. It almost like brought me to tears at one point. So I don't know if I've captured what it meant to win that game last night, but I hope I did. Just a surreal feeling that I hope continues. I hope we get to experience this more and more, and I hope this has opened up the floodgates, so to speak, for us to enjoy more great moments for this team.
Well, he probably said that because he's wearing the jersey I gave him to use on.
He's not giving it back now.
You know what's funny, Joe? I kind of said my piece with my son and enjoying it with him yesterday as well. But you know, for me, I forgot what the feeling felt like. So it was almost like I was feeling it for the first time because I don't remember how I reacted 20 years ago. Maybe I was in a bar or something like that, and it was like, hey, all right, let's go downtown and rip a sign off a pole. I don't know, because all I know is it was happening again this year. But like, you know, for a span of 20 years, you know, Rob, Joe, myself, being in you know, coaching hockey, and all you would see in the arenas were Sidney Crosby jerseys, Ovechkin jerseys, Patrick Kane jerseys, Tays, you name it. I tell you what, you weren't seeing a lot of. Kessel, Van Riemsdyk, it goes up and down the list. You just didn't see it enough. And finally, we now see, you know, loads, like today, like I said, today, just all these Matthews and Tavares and Marner. I saw an O'Reilly jersey. I saw, I can't believe I saw a Bunting jersey. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like that feeling is finally back where we don't have to accept mediocrity. You know what I mean? So now we got the taste of one. We don't want to stop at one because this team might have something that a lot of them didn't have in the past. You know, and I know we'll get to it when we break down the second round, but it's like, you know when people say, yeah, every year feels different. Nah, man, this is a little. This could be the making of something pretty special. And I don't think I could have said that maybe 2-3 years ago, but we might have something here.
Let's discuss that. Why was this year different than all of the failures that we've seen in the past 7 years with this group? I've got a couple answers myself, but I'll give the floor to you guys if you want to answer first, or do you want me to go ahead and...
Guys, go ahead.
So I've got 4 reasons why this year was different. Reason number 1 was the power play was much better this year. We're so used to the power play going absolutely dead cold in the playoffs, and it did not. The power play scored some really big goals this year. Getting them back into the game in Game 4 when they were down 4-1. Oddly enough and leafy enough, the power play is still 0 for 22 in series clinchers, which they're going to have to break out of if they want to continue to clinch more series. But nonetheless, the power play was much better. And the penalty kill against that tough Tampa power play did pretty well as well. Number 2, we finally had a goalie shut the door on the other team and completely steal us a game. I thought Samsonov did that in Game 6. Someone posted a video today online of all of the other series clinching games that the Leafs have had. And I counted like 8 terrible goals that our goalies let in those games. Freddie Anderson was, oh my God, in the biggest games, that guy crumbled. So to finally have your goalie step up, and I thought Samsonov played amazing in the first, and then in the third period and overtime made some really big saves as well. He's what gave them the chance to find, their legs and get those goals to win the series. Number 3, the Leaf Stars completely outshined Tampa's. And it's all in the numbers if you want to look at it. Matthews, 9 points. Tavares, 8 points. Marner, 11 points. Morgan Riley, 8 points. And you look at Tampa's big 4, Braden Point, 4 points. Steven Stamkos, 4 points. Nikita Kucherov, 6 points. And Victor Hedman had 3 points. Kuch and Point had a combined 4 points at 5-on-5 in the entire series. No goals at 5-on-5 for those two players. So the Leafs did amazing shutting those guys down. And the last thing, something every team needs that the Leafs surely did not get enough of the last 7 years, they got the luck. They got the breaks this series. You know, you could argue Tampa played better than them this series. I could listen to that argument for sure. But you could also argue that the Leafs were the better team last year against Tampa. They were the better team against Montreal and lost. They were the better team against Columbus and lost. They were the better team against the Bruins in 2019 and lost. They finally got the breaks this year. The pendulum of luck finally swung their way, and that's what allowed them to come through. I don't know if you guys want to add on to that, if you want to debate me on any of those, but
well, the Columbus one, that's the only. Don't disagree with any. The Columbus one, I don't know if they'll play Columbus that series, but
agree to disagree.
I loved it because yours were a lot of mine. I mean, the timely saves, I said that was one of the keys to the series. You just need that one save, and it's not about just the save. It's when the save happens. You've got a little momentum, or the game's starting to slip away. They came up with those big saves. You had the breaks, the mental toughness. At 4-1, that would have been a very easy game to say, you know what, let's mail it in, shut it down. And hasn't that been a real criticism of this team, is that there's no mental toughness on this team. And the last one, you talked about the superstars. That had to be Morgan Riley's best stretch. I don't want to talk about anybody else. He was in on every big play, it seemed, for Toronto. He was right there in front of the net with the goal. That goal may have gone off of him, the Tavares one, or whoever was defending him.
Darren Radish.
But he was there. Darren Radish isn't there if he's there. He seemed like he was in on all the big plays. And, you know, he's been really criticized by, I'm not going to say you guys, but by Leaf fans all season. He had a wonderful series.
He certainly did. We all criticized him for his play in the regular season. He didn't have a great regular season, but we also said on this show, we're willing to give Morgan the benefit of the doubt because he has been one of the guys that shows up consistently in the playoffs, and he did again. He played like a number one defenseman in that series.
Yeah. Listen, how many times have we been emphatic that he can't play on the power play? He's not a shooting threat from the power play, and sure enough, he gave us a big old shit burger to eat and scored 2 goals, just little flutters from the point or seeing eye shots through, and that's really all you needed. And that's kind of where I wanted to piggyback off your point, Joe, with 2 very simple things. Number one, they played a simplified game. I think you saw a little bit back. They kind of reverted back to it in Game 5. They just were trying to get into the perfect shooting zone and the perfect shooting lane, and they weren't doing what made them successful in Games 1 to 4. They weren't just putting pucks on net and getting bodies in front and looking for screens. No, they went back to that perimeter hockey, trying to, sauce one through some sticks and make the low percentage pass, and they got burned on it. They lost. Game 6, they played a very good road game, but they got pucks to the net. You know what I mean? And sure enough, again, they played simple hockey. They adjusted. Fair I say they adjusted because Tampa did a great job of taking away the neutral zone. Tampa played a great series, man.
They did,
they really did. They really know when to turn it up, and they knew how to shut down the Leafs at certain points in that series. So that was good for me. The second thing is I have a stat here. I just lost it. Give me a sec. Here it is. So up until the Game 7 against Boston and Florida, which I haven't seen the stats yet, but at that point, the Maple Leafs currently lead the playoffs in hits and block shots. When hits, so Achari's 42, Shen is second, 34, McCabe 32 are all top 5 in hits. The next closest player on any team to Achari is Trubo, 33 hits. So they have 3 Leafs in the top 5 in hits, and like I said, in block shots. So
never thought I'd hear that about the Leafs. And
you know what? Achari, Shen, McCabe, 3 acquisitions they made at the deadline of things that they were missing. So that's a credit to the guys they brought in. And I was going to say to you, how much did you hear Jake McCabe's name in the series? You didn't a lot. You know why? Because he just he does his job. They have guys like Achari, McCabe, that just went about their business and do what they do best. And again, filling holes that this team did not have, the last couple of years. And that's why you said to me, Joe, what do you see different about this team? It's those type of guys. you can't ask a guy like Nylander to play like that because that's not his game. His game is skill and offensive. You need to bring in the right guys with the right mix to do that work so he doesn't have to. And that's kind of where I see where we were very successful in the series.
To add on to that stats, because I saw that stat, I loved it. It was on the stats that stood out to me of this series. The Leafs as a team lead the playoffs. They have 277 team hits and 138 block shots. That's more than any other team in the playoffs thus far. Yep. So, and like you mentioned, the three guys that are in the top five, all Dubas acquisitions. Do you think that extension is waiting on his desk as soon as he wants to sign it?
Now it is. Like there's.
I thought it was already. I think it's already there. To be honest with you, I think they just didn't want to make a big media skep. What if he would have signed in January? They would have lost again in round one, right? The kind of criticism would have been. I think it's already there. To be quite honest with you, I think that goal, the overtime goal, saved Keefe's job. If you want me to be perfectly honest, but I think that's a foregone conclusion. I think. We don't have to get into it because it'd be another conversation. But where else is he going to get the resources like this? To operate the way he wants to, right? So I think it's already done.
So I'll just go through. If you've listened to our pod in the past, I am the stats guy of the pod, I guess you could say. I do like delving into these things. I think they're interesting. Here are some of the stats that stood out to me in this series. Speaking of your boy Jake McCabe, Frankie, despite the Leafs dressing 7 defensemen last night, he played over 27 minutes. And they've got him for 2 more years at $2 million. So that was just a great trade by Kyle Dubas. He and Brody did their job. They kept Kucherov and Point, who they played primarily against, to only 4 total 5-on-5 minutes. So, 4 total points at 5-on-5. My bad. Second stat I want to look at is Mitch Marner. He had 11 points in the series, but the Leafs won his 5-on-5 minutes 8-1. Without him, they lost 6-14.
Wow.
Yeah. His expected goals, if anybody doesn't know what expected goals is, I don't want to explain too much what it is, but basically they add up where the shots are taken and what kind of shots are taken. And they, a shot from the slot is worth more than a shot from the point, basically. He had 62% expected goals with him, the team, and the Leafs were 42.6 expected goals without him. So, and here's the thing. I don't know if necessarily the stats matched up the eye test necessarily, because of the Leafs' big four, I didn't think he was bad, but I didn't think he was as capable of playing. I didn't think he played as capable as he is,
Yep. That's fair.
I think the weight of the world was on that guy's shoulders, and I'm interested to see what he's like in round 2 now that they've went through it. I think he plays a lot more freer, and I think Mitch is going to have a really big round 2. So, stat number 3, John Tavares has ended 2 long playoff droughts. In 2016, he ended the Islanders' 23-year first-round drought with an OT goal against the Panthers, and he ends the Leafs' 19-year drought last night. Frankie, you mentioned the hit leaders for the Leafs. I had that one on there. Luke Schenn cost the Leafs a 3rd-round pick. Man, was he ever incredible in this series? He was on for 1 5-on-5 goal in just over 98 minutes of playing time in the series at 5-on-5. I mean, I always knew, I had the thought that Luke Schenn was going to lead us to a series win via shutdown D-man. Maybe that thought was in 2008.
We didn't say what year, Joe.
Exactly.
But you did say.
Come on, boys. Was he not incredible? And the knock on him was that his play with the puck would cost the Leafs. I thought he was so composed with the puck whenever it was on his stick. And when he needed to go off the glass, he did it. How about the play of our boy Luke? Luke's troops, baby.
It's funny. Rob mentions the whole thing about 92, 93. Man, this has a lot of eerie similarities to that defense core. They don't have a superstar defenseman, but they have, 6 decent guys, right? That are probably, 7, 8 deep. You got your Riley, your McCabe, your Schenn, Liljegren, etc., Giordano, Brody. But back then you had Mironov, Lefebvre, Rouse, McCallum.
Bobby Rouse.
You know what I mean? Like guys who just got the job done. So I find that a very eerie comparison.
You know, I love them. The thing about them winning, I don't hear anybody talking about those draft picks. Like, oh man, we gave up a second. Or
so true.
It's amazing what winning does, eh? Nobody's talking about draft picks about who you're going to take in June. Worry about now.
Nobody gives a you know what about the draft picks.
Yeah,
you got it. All right, last stat for you. Sheldon Keefe is the only living coach for the Maple Leafs that has won a series. Red Kelly passed away in 2019, and the last Leafs coach to win a series, Pat Quinn, died a number of years ago. So I want to give Sheldon Keefe some credit. We knocked him hard for some of his moves earlier in the series, and I thought he was getting outcoached at certain points by Cooper, certainly in the series. But he made the obvious play to take Justin Hall out and put Liljegren in, and I thought Liljegren played really well. But what I thought was interesting, we knew Bunting was going to go back in, but we didn't know that they would go 7D, 11 forwards, and he took Lafferty and Aston Reese out. But what that allowed them to do was it allowed them to come up with so many different forward options, and it allowed them to play their stars a lot more.
Yep.
Right? So I'll give him credit. I thought that was a really great decision. I thought Gustafsson had a solid game yesterday in the limited minutes that he played as well.
I actually had the 11-7 set up. I knew that exactly what they were going to do.
That's why you're the coach.
I did not expect Gustafsson. I did not expect Gustafsson. That one came out of left field for me. I honestly would have kept Hall. Believe it or not, I would have kept Hall in the lineup strictly for penalty killing.
Penalty kill. He was fine on the penalty kill.
He does well there. He does.
He does.
He does. You got to call it for what it is, right? But the Gustafsson one, and then I thought about it more. We talked about it, Joe, how Tampa, again, clogs that neutral zone. The Leafs were having a tough time with outlet passes out of their zone. Gustafsson makes a good outlet pass.
He does.
And
he can skate it out too, which Liljegren did as well.
Exactly. So, hey, I'd be interested to see how they line up game one. I don't think they do that again, but you got to give the guy credit. We knock him pretty hard, and I'm still not, convinced on it. But, sometimes I just think he gets too, he outcoaches himself.
Yeah.
Or just, misses the simple stuff. And for your exact reason was the fact that 11 forwards was the right thing to do, is to give those different looks. Your fourth line would then look like Kampf, Kerfoot, and Nylander. Like, oh shit! Now you're going up against Belmar, Perry, and Maroon, who can't skate, right? So I thought it was, that was really good.
I gotta say, and I forgot what I was gonna say. No, but I'll talk about. It would have been really easy for him to say we're just gonna leave Justin Hall in the lineup, because I can tell you I would hate having the media tell me what to do. And there was just so much clamor about, hey, Justin Hall can't play, and you got to take him out. It would have been very easy for him to say kind of like, F you, I'm going to do what I want. But to take him out, that took stones. But is there any coincidence that of the 6 games, Justin Hall didn't play one, and it was the least amount of goals they gave up this series, Tampa? And I would go back to last year, because I can't remember last year's series, but I don't think they gave up less than 2 goals last year in any of the 7 games. Now, I might be wrong.
In game 1, they got a shutout, but yeah.
They got a shutout. So basically, this was the second best performance over the last 13 games against Tampa, and it's the one that Justin Hall, is out for. There's no, I don't, you want to talk about coincidences? Maybe it's a coincidence, but maybe it's not,
Listen, being on the ice 73 or 74% of the goals in the series is not a coincidence, my friend.
I'll tell you, I don't think Tampa went there and said, great, Justin Hall's out of the lineup. I don't think they sat there and they're like, thank God he's out of the lineup. So
Cooper was probably thinking, I wonder what took Sheldon so long.
Yeah. Oh, shit, guys, he's out.
Oh, man.
We got to pick on somebody else.
They actually realize he's been on the ice for that many goals against. Oh, no.
The old saying from Moneyball.
Making an adjustment, guys. Oh, no.
If the other team's making mistakes, don't stop them. So
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
All right, boys. I'm going to utter some words that I've waited a long time to say. Let's talk about the Maple Leafs in round 2.
Oh, my God.
And they're going to square off against the Florida Panthers, who just ended one of the craziest upsets in NHL history as they defeated the Boston Bruins, who had one of the most epic regular seasons in NHL history. Most people had them, and Vegas and all the odds makers had them as the betting favorite to win the Stanley Cup, yet they don't even make it past the first round. They had a 3-1 series lead. They had the series in the bag, and they let it slip away. Bruins fans, welcome to what it's like to be one of us. I don't feel sorry for you. Breathe it in. Soak it in. What kind of universe is this? Bruins are blowing leads, and the Leafs are moving on. It's a universe I want to be a part of. What the heck happened to those guys, Bobby?
I'm not in the same boat as everybody, because I talked to a ton of people, and the whole clamor was, nobody's beating Boston. Nobody's beating Boston. And I said, very controversially, any series they go in, they're not going to have the best goalie. And everybody said, you're nuts. You're crazy. Linus Ullmark is the he's going to win the Vezina. And my thing was, yeah, I don't think he's that good, though. I don't think you go from like an 898 save percentage to 942, and that's like all of a sudden your problems are fixed in a year. I don't buy that. Like Boston had a really good defensive system. They obviously played they play a good game, but I don't know if I trust Linus Ullmark, and obviously Boston didn't trust him if you don't play him in a Game 7. I mean, I don't care how bad your number one goalie is. They play in Game 7. If you really truly believe in them. So maybe I'm not that far off to say he isn't that great. Maybe he's not the guy.
Maybe he just had a rough stretch in the playoffs of all times.
I'll tell you, if Vasilevsky gave up eight goals in like 4 straight games and there's a Game 7, you think he's not playing Game 7? Like, do you think there's any
That is
world?
a good point. I'll give you that one.
I'm just like, when people are like, nobody's beating Boston. Boston's a wonderful team. They have good forwards. Some of them are a little bit older, but they're good forwards. They have a nice defense core. But when you don't have that bona fide goalie, anything can happen. We know this is the one sport that anything can happen. And if the 93 Islanders with nobody can beat the 93 Penguins, that was one of the, like, a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, Lemieux, Yager, help me out here,
Rick
Francis,
Tocchet, Kevin Stevens, Ron Francis,
Tom Barrasso.
Yeah.
If they can beat them, I don't buy that any team's a lock. I mean, hell, we looked at Tampa a few years ago. Greatest regular season. How much did that take out of them going for that record? How much did it take out of Boston going for that record?
Yeah. Do you think it has to do with anything? Like, the regular season was pretty much a breeze for them. They didn't really face any adversity whatsoever. Everything just went smoothly for them. And then all of a sudden they hit adversity in the playoffs and they melted like butter.
Yeah.
Could that have been it?
Could be.
Who knows, man?
But they're a fine team. I don't think, if you were to say, hey, give me your 5 best teams in NHL history, I don't think this team's going in that list. They're a wonderful team, but I don't know. Is this a top 5 team in NHL history? Top 10.
Bobby, their third line had Taylor Hall, who's a former Hart Trophy winner, Tyler Bertuzzi, who's a former All-Star player. Like,
maybe
they're
I'm
very
being
deep at forward. Their defense is really deep.
Maybe I'm being unfair, because we shouldn't say of all time. They're not a top 5 team of all time. No offense. Salary cap era, one of the best teams built. It's hard to compare the salary cap era. How do you compare this team to the '98 Detroit team that? I mean, their fourth line was like Shanahan, I don't know, Datsuk, or I don't know, but anyway, wonderful team, but not surprised they went out. But it's a good thing for Toronto, because now they don't have to go through that demon, and now they get a team that I think is much more suited for the Leafs to defeat in Florida. So you guys can.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. The Leafs will have home ice advantage in this series. Remember all the complaining by Leafs fans about the playoff format?
And us.
And us, we did it too. Well, the Maple Leafs, who finished 4th in the conference, ended up playing the 6th best team in Tampa Bay, and now they're going to play the 8th best team in Florida. So if there was the 1-8 and it got reseeded, it wouldn't work out like that. So it's actually worked in their favor this year. Talking about the Panthers, what challenges do they pose for the Maple Leafs that's maybe more of a challenge than the Bruins would have given them?
I mean, I got 2 names for you.
I know exactly what you're going to say, and I'm going to agree with you 100%.
Alex Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk, who, going back to that, I mean, if you want to say David Pastrnak was the best player in the series, in the Boston series, the next two best players are Tkachuk and
I think
Barkov.
Tkachuk was the best player in the series.
I'm not saying he was. I'm saying if you want to say going into the series, who's the best player in the series? And you want to say Pastrnak scored 60 or whatever he did, but they have two all-world players, and Ekblad's a nice defenseman. So, I mean, there's your fear if you're a Leaf fan.
Yeah, he does scare me. I think he has the ability, the skill, the heart, the desire to put a team on his back and carry them through, like we just saw him do against the Bruins. And if you're the Leafs playing against Matthew Tkachuk for an entire series, you gotta not let him get to you, because he certainly has that ability. You can't take stupid penalties. They still got a really good power play, and they have a deep team. Like their forward lines, they're pretty damn deep. They have one of the best records in the league since January. And I think I saw a stat where it was at January 15th, they were 7th place in the Atlantic Division. And from that point, they were able to somehow get themselves into the playoffs. So from the middle of January, they were one of the best teams in the league and played like they did last year, maybe more truer to themselves than they did at the first half of the season. So I don't know if we can look at them as like an 8 seed. They're probably a lot better than that.
You want to take this, Frank?
Well, I think their style of play is a total opposite, than what Tampa is capable of doing. Again, watching them tonight, they had a relentless forecheck on Boston. So you're probably going to, at least already expecting that, because Tampa did a fantastic job against Toronto on that. Where the big difference is here is I look at this defense core. There is no Victor Hedman on this blue line. And you saw what happened when Hedman was out of the lineup, with Tampa, and how the Leafs just feasted on that defense core. I look up and down at this Panther defense, and Ekblad, who was an excellent defenseman, is a shell of what he was. Brandon Montour's having a fantastic season, but he's doing it all on the offensive side. Then you look at guys like Mark Stahl, right? Radko Gudas is going to be a pain in your ass, but he's not really an effective, offensive type of defenseman either. Like, I just look at this as the weak point of this team. And hey, listen, Bobrovsky is a former Vezina winner. He was actually on the Columbus team that beat Tampa and the other big upset in NHL history.
I forgot about that. Wow.
He does have that pedigree, but listen, he also didn't start the playoffs either. So there's a big question mark for me. The Leafs have always played well against him. So two areas, they just slayed the beast. They just slayed arguably the greatest goalie on the face of the planet. Like, as we speak, in Vasilevsky, they should be like seeing, like when the bull and sees the red cape in Spain, like they should be like licking their chops looking at this defense core and the goaltending. The one area that is a bit of a concern for me with the Leafs, again, John, I know you're going to talk about the power play. Florida's penalty kill is outstanding. They have guys like Lundell, Barkov, Listerainen, I think Reinhart. These guys can not only kill a penalty, they take a lot of chances and they wait for a mistake and going back the other way. The Leafs have to be careful with this 5-man unit, especially when playing with the one defense. Panthers can strike, and they can strike quick on a penalty kill. So they actually did it against the Leafs the last time they played in Toronto, when Lundell scored like a minute and a half in on a penalty kill. So shorthanded goal. So like I said, I don't see it as being as close. I feel a little bit better about the Leafs defense, knowing that they can handle a tough forecheck from Florida. But this is if the Leafs can get Florida to play a different style than Boston, because the Leafs are they are a quicker team. They are a more of a puck possession team. I don't want to. There shouldn't really be any problems, to be quite honest with you.
Oh, God, it makes me feel so uncomfortable when you say that the Leafs should have no
problem. From what I see it, man, I don't know. I'm not saying the Leafs are a better team than the Bruins, because, Robbie has some pretty good points there. I'm talking about the style of play. If the Leafs try to play like Florida, it's going to be a very slow moving pace, and like they did against Columbus, it's not going to go well for them. If they can play that high tempo game, knowing that Samsonov can make those saves, there really shouldn't be any excuse.
I don't have the standings from last year. Didn't Florida win the President's Trophy last year?
They most certainly did. Yes, they did.
I mean, I don't think we should really be surprised. And while they are an 8 seed, it's probably because they got off to that really slow start. And that was a team that didn't have Matthew Tkachuk, who is proven to be one of the most impactful players in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
I can speak from being a Canucks fan. I bring them up all the time. But in 2011, they went 2009, they couldn't beat Chicago. 2010, they couldn't beat Chicago. And they finally beat them in a really tough, close series. They played a lot freer and easier in the second round. They played Nashville. I'm really intrigued to see how the Leafs play in the second round. I don't want to write Florida off. I hate to do this. But there are some teams that I look and I try to picture them winning, and I don't see it. Like that year with Nashville and Vancouver, I'm like, I didn't see it. I knew that Vancouver's going to win the series. I hate to do it, but I don't really see this Florida team winning the Stanley Cup. I think they're a Cinderella team just based off the seed, but normally Cinderella usually bows out at some point. If you're a Leafs fan, you just got to hope that this is the round that they bowed out at, and just hope that Boston took a ton out of them, and wore them down. But I don't think Florida's going to win the cup. This is pickings for the Leafs, and now it's going to be up to them. I think they're going to play free. I think they're going to play easy, but it's the Leafs. You never know. Game 1's going to be interesting because Game 1 is got to be Florida's. If Florida doesn't get that one, they're going to be in tough because usually you come off this game and you're riding some emotion. If the Leafs come out and take it to Florida in Game 1, I think that's going to be a telling sign of how that series is going to go.
I'll tell you another thing, Rob, just to piggyback on that. The Leafs are the home team from Game 1. I'll almost guarantee you they'll also be the home team for Game 3 and 4 because there are a lot of transplanted Canadians down there. And I'll tell you another thing. That is not a hard building to play in. Not like Tampa was. Amalie Arena is a very tough atmosphere.
I disagree there. I think they could sit outside in their little lawn chairs.
I don't care about that.
And show up to the stands in their shorts and their T-shirt. That stadium or Amalie Arena did not seem like it was difficult to play in. There were a ton of Leaf fans at those games in Tampa. And I just didn't think I didn't think that arena was very imposing one bit. And for all the gripe that Toronto gets about, eating their caviar and their sushi at Leaf games, at Leaf playoff games, much louder than in Tampa. I'm sorry. And they have had way more to cheer about in the last couple of years, so they should be louder, but I don't agree with that.
I don't want to cross sports here.
Yeah.
But I want to just before we move on, because I want to talk about something that Frank brought up. The Leafs are going to have the home ice advantage. Part of the reason, and nobody's going to talk about this on any other sports show, the Miami Heat are going to get a lot of the attention in that city. I mean, they're coming off a massive upset. You think there's going to be people walking around with Florida Panthers jerseys in Miami? Like everybody's going to be wearing
at Target.
Yeah, everybody's going to be wearing Heat stuff. The Florida Panthers are going to be like back page news.
Yeah.
So I agree, Frank, and that's a wonderful point. The Leaf fans will. I think it's going to be like a Leaf regular season game there, where it's just.
You could probably get a return flight to Florida for like $400 or $500. Get yourself a pair of tickets for $300.
You probably buy a condo down there for less than
and you're spending less than what it'll cost you to go to a game in Toronto. So, all right, boys, predictions for the series. What are you predicting?
Leafs in 5.
Oof.
6.
I will say Leafs in 7. I say the Leafs slayed the first round dragon with Tampa. They slay the Game 7 dragon with the Panthers in round 2. All right, boys, this was fun. I hope we could do a lot more of these, and I hope it comes up in the next couple of weeks.
These are better than the postmortems.
Those are fun too. Cathartic. It was like
I enjoy those.
Years of frustration off the shoulders. Just get that monkey off the back. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate the support. Make sure you hit that like, that subscribe button. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, on Spotify, and we really appreciate all the comments, the feedback. Let us know what you thought and how you that amazing Game 6 win against the Lightning. How did that make you feel? What was it finally like to see the Leafs win a series? Signing off for the boys, the Puck and Leafs podcast. Joe Choffs, Coach Frank, Bobby Bottles. Let's go Leafs in round 2. Take care, everyone.